It looks like people are filtering in. They're starting to show up. 27 attendees already. That looks like a pretty good place to start. So guys, I want to welcome you all to this session of our Forward Consulting series. Essentially, one of the biggest challenges for any startup, it's the funding. It's how in God's name do I keep this going? Do I pay myself, pay the bills, pay the team, build the product, scale things up? And that comes down to pitch decks and pitching to investors. We're going to cover both of those on today's session with somebody who's pretty good at this themselves. And he's, as he said, reviewing a lot of decks. Hendrik Dik, he leads the climate kind of hardware side of things of MassChallenge Switzerland. Wanted to let Hendrik introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll share a little bit more about some of the consulting and advisory services that we're providing here as part of this kind of series, as well as what we do on the back end side of Forward to pay the bills and help you guys forward. But Hendrik, now's your chance to do a better introduction than I just gave you.
Matt, thank you. Known Matt for a couple of years now. It's been, I think we met, I think in the first year that I was with MassChallenge, which was 2022. Me personally, I've got a very diverse background. Half of my career has been in corporates, so working with multinationals, Samsung and Chevron, Rio Tinto back in Australia. Moved to Switzerland 10 years ago to get away from primary resources and do something that's closer to what my core studies were, which is in environmental and marine. But that was the first half of my career. It's always, the other half has also been with startups. So I've been working from my very first role, which was doing business development with a startup founding out of my home university. It's a nice place to be here in MassChallenge Switzerland. We are the world's largest non-profit accelerator in the world. So looking after startups that are trying to make an impact. I guess for those of you that know MassChallenge, it's founded in Boston at the height of the GFC. So we had a large financial crisis, and one of the founders was looking at ways to make an impact to help startups get going. Techstars and Plug and Play were all founded at the same kind of time. And if you know those business models, we run a very similar one. The reason we don't take anything from startups themselves, we run equity free, is because our corporate partners support us. So they pay an annual I guess a fee or a contribution that lets us run an open innovation ecosystem, and that lets me do what I love doing, which is helping startups to grow and to scale. And I do it without having any strings or anything in the anything is in the pot, I guess is how you'd say it. And in return, the corporates that are our corporate partners here. Corporates like Beulah, Omya, Mars this year is one that you'd also probably recognize, Givaudan. They're all multinationals, mostly based in Switzerland, minimum of $1 billion per year in revenue. They get introduced to some of the world's best startups. So for those of you that are in Switzerland, we've had startups like Planted come through. They've raised, I guess, 150 or so million. One of our most well-known startups. But I think Deepoli, who's on the top of the Swiss hottest 100 startups as well. So there's always quite a good number of startups that are Swiss based that are coming through the cohort. I get to see a lot of pitches. I get to see those that work. I get to also hear behind the scenes what the judges say about those. I get to see the ones that go on to raise money. And it gives me a nice insight. So even though I haven't had a startup that's hit the big one yet, I've had a lot of turns over the years, and I guess I'd probably share with you some of the insights that are from people far more successful than myself. And I guess while the majority of startups I work with on a day-to-day basis are looking to pitch towards corporates, the same basic foundations apply when you're trying to raise money from investors. And this is the main point. It's probably the one thing that every startup is needing. That's to make revenues, and often that ideally that comes straight from the customers, but there's a space early on called the valley of death where startups need to get the cash, and then as they scale, they're going to need more cash to grow and to make the massive changes that all the startups I work with are here to get going with. So Matt, I guess thanks for having me come in. It's something that I really love. I guess over the years, it's hearing those insights.
As you guys can tell, Hendrik's awesome. He's also awesome because they don't take equity. I've known Hendrik for a while. My background, built and sold a couple smaller bootstrapped companies, got into angel investing, venture capital, built out climate. Well, actually, the climate syndicate came later, that part of Forward. We had an angel syndicate. We were doing some deals, working with companies, and then growing Forward, seeing I don't know, hundreds of pitch decks, the startup tank, working as a investor syndicate lead and dealing with decks, as well as on the flip side is the founder building things, more bootstrapped, less so VC backed. Likes to keep things under personal control, so to speak. But now, essentially, we're here so that we can help you guys pitch to companies, make your decks awesome, find investors, outreach. If you guys need help and support with this, just forward.vc/consulting. You can check out our consulting and advisory services. We help startups with this, with growth, scaling, partnerships, funding, hiring, grants. And we deal with and help corporate clients with decarbonization, sustainability services, and everything that they need to advance their goals. But speaking of goals, you're probably all here for funding and looking to learn from the pitch deck. So Hendrik and I are going to walk through it. He's in charge, and I am here as the peanut gallery to add in and try to share context wherever I can, and would love to hear from any of you guys who are serious about funding and would like some help to get there. Should we jump into
I guess, yeah, absolutely. Let's we can start with the deck as we go. I think 1.2, noticing that there's the chat obviously is open. So I see a question from Tim about the decline in VC funding. Would it be right to open a session today on climate funding without mentioning macroeconomic changes that are happening? So this, I think when people saw the results of some big events earlier in the year, some people smiled, some people frowned, but I think it didn't really change things in a bigger way. I think what it did do, even though there is less cash around the last couple of years, has been a bit of financial constriction. It's made it more competitive for startups to get through, but the basics haven't changed. The startups that are competitive, that have a really valid business model, and you can't escape it. You can't just assume because you have a nice climate impact, you make a difference. They're still succeeding. They're still raising money. Most of the founders I know that are doing well are still getting their deals closed. They're still finding scale up cash. So yeah, there is a bit of pessimism for sure, but I think it just means we have to work on the fundamentals a lot more strongly. This is probably the key thing. So yes, it's a competitive landscape, Tim, but it's not hopeless. I think what MassChallenge this year had more applicants than we've had in the Swiss office in years, and the quality of startups goes up. It just means that you need to rise with the boat, use things like AI, etc. on the way in. But yeah,
certain things are harder, I will say, though. For a lot of funds are going to be going underwater, just not being able to raise follow-on funds or having to support their kind of past portfolio companies. So while there is still funding out there, I personally think it's gotten a heck of a lot harder for companies because the investors have to spend half their cash investing or saving the companies they've already invested in, and half their time trying to figure out how to raise their next fund. But anyways, if you want to stand out, this is kind of how we do it. We solve the 10-step playbook, which Hendrik and Mr. Kawasaki and I will take you guys through. Sound like a plan?
I think that to introduce it, I've given loads of advice over the years and seen loads of tips. What I'll also always do is start with the foundations, because people can have an amazing story, but they can miss the root causes. And so for those of you that have got a great pitch deck, that are winning money, that have had traction, that have heard Kawasaki's slide deck as well, apologies for using that as the entry into the conversation, but it's a good door opener because he does start with 10 slides. Everything Kawasaki said 10 or so years ago when he wrote this template still stands now. The difference being that we'll I guess take learnings and points from that for those of you that are well beyond the 10 slides Kawasaki. So nice to meet you as well. But I guess, Matt, did you want to start by sharing the presentation today?
Yeah, let me open up screen share. Sorry, I thought you had that on your side. Let's see.
I do have it here. If that's makes it easier.
I can do it as well.
Oh yeah, cool.
Oh, we have that welcome slide to the programming. I apologize. You've all been welcomed. And now we jump into perfecting the pitch deck, the masterclass, so to speak. We've gone through this. You can tell where I'm a little bit out of practice in terms of running events. We've been too busy helping the companies, as has Hendrik. Let's break it down. First things first. So what's the point of the deck? The purpose, the strategy, the pitfalls, even before jumping into the into Guy Kawasaki's slide. What's the biggest deal, in your opinion, Hendrik, for why the deck?
I mean, the deck is not supposed to communicate everything about your startup. It's the same as a trailer, a Netflix trailer. It's really, its only goal is to get you a conversation with someone that you want to basically communicate something with. And that's it could be an investor, could be a somebody that wants to join your team, could be, like if you're trying to get it really raw, it could be someone you met at a running club that you'd like to basically talk a bit more with. But we're taking it here with investors. The whole point of this is to communicate that you're dealing a problem big enough to get them to trust you, to recognize you're dealing with something really massive and challenging that you have, and you have the solution in your startup that will solve this problem. That's the foundation of your entire pitch. We want to get them to the table. Many people don't know what the person's that they're talking to is basically looking for, so they're trying to pitch everything. That's kind of one of the biggest problems. The thing you need to find out, it's going to change every single time you pitch it, is you need to deliver the message to the people that you're meeting with. So I did a quick skim through the list and realized we've got a range of people. I'm assuming that a lot of you are startups that are looking to raise funds. And so I'll be pitching with that, or basically communicating with that in mind. The goal is first to communicate that you have a problem big enough. And I guess we can pull that apart by using the Guy Kawasaki template now. I think it might make the easiest way. Matt, if you wanted to, you have that. I have that as well.
Before we do, and the next most important thing to think about is the goal of the pitch deck and the outreach email is to get the meeting. And the goal of the first meeting, Hendrik, is to get the second meeting. So you're really trying to close them and move them along that funnel. So fundraising, it's going to take 2-3 meetings at the very least. You'll initially probably meet with an associate or an analyst. Then hopefully you get a partner. Then hopefully they bring in other partners, or it goes to an investment committee. But it's going down that kind of pipeline. And every time you bring in a little bit more details. Let me change the screen sharing mode here a little bit. So the only 10 slides you guys will need is here, but now I have to find where I put it. Do you want to open this up on your side?
Yeah, I'll do it that way. Here we go. I'll do the screen share. 10 seconds.
And for folks that have questions, comments, etc., add those to the chat. And at the end, we'll have a bit of a Q&A section where we bring up the most interesting and relevant questions and cover those for you.
I'm going to share the entire screen. So can you now see the only 10 slides you need to see in a pitch?
Yes.
Should be on the screen now.
Looking good.
Okay, good. So you should be able to see a large black one that says the only 10 slides you need to see in a pitch. And that's great because I had it working 10 seconds ago and it should now be here. Here we go. This is the one we really wanted. So this is obvious. We're opening with a title screen. People forget the importance of this one. Whether you're sending a deck to somebody that's in the body of an email, whether you're sending a link, whether you're having the chance to have to be part of a pitching demo day or something like this, you'll have a title screen. I've heard of this referred to as a zero slide. It's your slide that often will be spending the most time on the screen. So clear, it's obvious. Don't miss the chance to put your contact details. So this is really important. It's your mobile number, your handy, your cell, depending where you are in the world, who you are as well. If you're somebody that's had a lot of traction, and I say somebody as a startup, you've been winning awards, you've had big partners, you've got already some big name investors in, put splashed all over the front page. I guess the point here is really to get the traction and the trust built early on. And I'll use the word trust a lot on the way through. The whole point of this is to get the people that you're communicating to trust that you have something that they want to hear more about. That's the title slide. The problem, the opportunity, is often raised early on. This slide it can't be missed. The slide which basically, and this could be a slide, or if you're pitching in a 10 or 20 second delivery, this is the core of the entire business model. Somebody, and that somebody could be one person that has a pain that's big enough that they're willing to pay money for. Those are the 2 points. If your pain is something really small that people are willing to pay $1 for each day, but there's something that every person on the planet will basically be willing to spend that $1 for, then you've got a 10 billion per year business when we get to 10 billion people. If your pain is big enough that one person is going to spend a billion or 10 billion, then you've got also a business. So the problem opportunity is really doing two things. It's letting the investors know, and ultimately the investors are the people that are signing the bills, that there's a business here, a business opportunity here that could be solved. But the other half of that is that you're not just pitching a business case, you're not starting just with the money, but you're starting also with the human part. And in this, you want to really, depending on the problem you're solving, open with the human part. So people often start with a massive problem like climate change. And this is so big that many people will hear that and start to switch off. It's the same problem you got when you're talking about market sizes and you're doing top down. You're talking about things like the world economy is 10 trillion per year or whatever the number happens to be. If I could get just 1% of that, then I'm going to make money. This is the same way. You do not want to be describing the problem and the
Can I
opportunity.
jump in here for a sec, Hendrik?
Yes.
It's because in one you're related to a problem, and the other you're related to their problem. Whose problem are you solving? Climate change is not your problem, it's our problem, and you're not going to pay to solve our problem, but you will solve your problem.
This is a good point. But the point in here also is that your startup that you have is not going to solve climate change independently. You're normally providing a business which is grounded in a solution that someone will pay money to solve. Climate change is the outcome. We're all here because we're trying to boost startups and help startups that can make an impact on climate change. But opening with this as your entire challenge is kind of like saying the sky's blue. Everyone knows the sky's blue. If someone's listening to a climate change startup, they know that the climate is under pressure and we need to fix it. What they want to see is that you deeply understand a pain in society that needs to be solved. That's really the key point of this. If they understand that you really understand the problem and the rest of your deck comes together to support this, then they're confident that you can be someone that can solve it. This is the really put the point on here. Not going to solve climate change. Don't open with climate change. Open with a pain of somebody, of a company, of an individual within the company. The more granular you get with that, as one example of one, the more trustworthy it's going to be. That's, I guess, the first slide on that. Now, when it comes out of that, of course, the value you're bringing, in this case, the solution to the problem, is really is the next part, and this can be it. What they're trying to then work out is, do they trust that the solution you've got will solve this problem? If you're saying we've got a problem with people eating too much meat, and I'm going to offer this bland tasting, insert grey picture here, but you're not connecting it together. So in here, it's really linking the pain you've got to the problem you've got and grounding that in the market, which basically leads into the next part, your underlying magic. And the reason that this is important is that they're trying to find your USP. So it's what is unique about your business that means that everybody else is trying to solve the same thing is not going to do it as well as you. So opening with the pain points, coming through, talking about how you're going to solve it. Doesn't have to be two separate slides, but should come into to really lead into where your underlying magic is. This is the transition in here.
Defensibility, so that even if you have magic, someone else is not going to come in and steal your magic. So how do you do that, or what will make you be the outcome that, because you also need to think when you're pitching, investors are looking for at least 50 to more likely 100 or 1,000x outcomes. They want to see at least the stages you're mostly operating at, that pre-seed, seed stage. They want to see 100x possible outcome, because so many companies will fail. Their business economics are derived around two companies essentially return the portfolio and make the fund. And the majority of the companies are ones that are maybe kind of base hits or maybe kind of slight successes, but they're willing to write that off. So what makes you not only able to solve that problem with your unique magic, but also have it defensible enough so that there's not going to be 17 other of you in a year and you're in a cash competition. Go ahead,
It's
Hendrik.
yeah. No, you're 100% right. So if it's a hardware, then it's a patent. Having the presence of a patent, this can often be enough. It's really trusting that your unique advantage, your unique selling point, your magic is something you can defend. So they call this a moat. They call it I mean, Musk said recently that they don't patent as much as they could because if you move really quickly, then you don't need to worry about it because by the time the people have worked out what you're doing, you're already so far ahead that you don't have to worry about it. If you have less resources than that, then absolutely having a patent that gives you a little space to work around could be all you need. If you're a hardware company or a company based in something hardware and you haven't got a patent or something that's really defensible, then you need to have something else which gives you a defensible position. Many investors, if you haven't got something which is clear and they can grasp as a unique tradable, they won't even look. So I think the first startup I was working with, we had patents, a whole range of patents, but we never patented the core IP, and I've still never told anybody what that is. So my co-founder and myself never shared that bit of IP. It's trade secrets. But we had enough patents in the background that investors could come in and see that we had a defensible position and the right to play. But this is really the core. Yeah, it's
And if you
your
need
underlying magic.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sometimes it's tough on the timing. If you guys need support on that, we have patent consultants who can come in and support you with that. And if you can't afford a patent consultant right now, one way to hack it so at least you don't get unpatented and someone tries to steal your technology, patent that, is to send yourself a letter describing the technology in the mail and don't open the mail. It'll be dated, it'll describe the technology, and then you now have proof that you are the person who came up with this at XYZ date. No one else can patent that prior to you.
Exactly. Business model, this is one of the key parts. So this comes in really early because we opened at the beginning. We're here to save the climate. We're here to protect the things around us that we love. But a startup is different from a fund or from an NGO. We're here to make money. And the foundation of a startup is that we will raise cash by solving a problem, make money, and then use that to release more value that we'll then use to scale and basically do the work we're doing. How you plan to get the cash into your business is one of the most critical points. And that could be as simple as we're going to make a lemonade stand and we're going to sell lemons and people give us cash for the lemons and our entire business is raised on how many lemons we can sell. A simple, easy business model. So make it really clear. If you're going to go in front of an investor, they should know that your business is really quite an easy, simple to understand way of making cash. You definitely can't miss that. Go-to-market plan. Now, in here, you don't necessarily have to have a slide which says go-to-market plan, but it should be very clear how you're planning to get there. This is another point. As we get closer along, you'll see that it starts to lean into traction and evidence of what you've managed to do as well. But go to market. It's amazing having an amazing tech, a widget that's the world's best at cooking. Same with the lemonade stand. It's a widget which makes lemonade much faster than anybody else. That's great. But how are you going to sell that? You're going to make one. Are you going to sell that to somebody else? Will you license that to a large multinational and have them basically give you a cut? It needs to match what your competences are, your tech, and how it fits as well. So it's a really logical step-by-step plan of how you get to the market. Competitive analysis. I like to put this really early on. So there's a problem in the market. There is a solution that you've got, but it's unlikely that problem, if it's big enough and has enough money behind it, hasn't been solved before. If you come up and you say, and someone asks you the question, what's your competition like? And you say there's no competition, then that basically is the fastest way to get the door slammed in your face. Because even if you've got an amazing new tech, you're still bringing your solution into a space where people are kind of coping with this in some other way. You need to map out as clearly as possible. People come and they say that they've got a startup which is competing with Amazon and with Tesla or other large, massive, well-funded organizations. This should be something which is exciting. If you've got a team that can back it up and you can solve it, then map it out there. Don't hide from large competitors that are well funded. If these competitors are in the same space as you, this is a massive green tick to the market to say that you're working in something, you're working in a way that basically attracts money. So that's, I guess, the point in here. The way I like to do today is with a matrix. It's to describe your tech and link that to the key points that the market needs to see from your tech. We'll come back to that a little bit later on.
And why you're 10x better, or people should switch, because if you're trying to sell a Tesla 2, which is the same price as a Tesla or a Mesla, you're not going to sell Meslas against somebody else's these days. Elon's birthed the brand, but that's another story. But in general, you need a product that's 5 to 10x better or cheaper, or in some way, shape, or form differentiated and making it worth the pain point of changing. So always consider that and show that in that competitive analysis as well as throughout the deck.
It doesn't have to be 10x cheaper. It just has to have a really unique, yeah, you have to show somewhere on here that you have a way to get from where you are to 100 million. This is, I guess, a magic number in there. If you haven't got 100 million and you're looking to raise money, then you don't have interest to any VC, especially VCs, institutional investors. For smaller investors, it's less relevant, these massive numbers, but you have to be able to scale and grow big. If you want another way to think about the competitive analysis, it's not just a matter of listing all the people doing something similar to you and listing all the ways you're different. Stop for a second and think about what someone's solving the problem that you're trying to basically solve. Think about the steps that they'll make. If I was looking to make lemonade, then I would probably Google and try to find lemonade machines and find that maybe they're $500 and it's too expensive for me because that's, I've got a small plastic squeezer. So you've got expensive lemonade machine on one, you've got a little plastic widget that you can use to squeeze, and the last one is you've got no machine, just a knife and a bucket. If you were to put them in a grid, you're thinking, okay, what does Hendrik want from a lemonade machine? The first one is, I want to make lemonade, so it does the job. Everything gets a tick on that. How much lemonade does Hendrik want? Well, I want one glass right now, but my whole family might want one glass. So it could be the amount of lemonade it makes per day. And then the last one is going to be, of course, there's cost in there. But you put that into the matrix and you say, okay, well, if Hendrik only wants one and he wants to pay the cheapest price and he wants it just to be functional, then tick, 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 a knife and squeezing it by hand is all I need to do to solve it. So if your entire business model is selling to people like Hendrik that wants just one glass at a time, then you haven't got a competitive advantage. But if what you're trying to do is make a machine that lets little Jimmy put or Jeanette, a little lemonade stand on her front veranda, and she can make 1,000 lemonade glasses a day and quench the thirst of every thirsty passerby, then a knife or a little plastic squeeze doesn't make it. So the volume becomes important. And then price per units, it changes again. So you need to make sure your competitive analysis is really communicating the key decision points that your customer, remember right back to the very first slide, the key decision points that your customer is looking to solve in the process. What I like to do really for me when I'm structuring slides together is I normally put the pain point and then the competitive analysis as the first couple of slides. Before I even start talking about my solution, I'm already talking about the competitive analysis. So people understand that I understand what the competition looks like. And I guess that's a little sort of a point on making it fit together nice and easily.
And
but you can't.
If you ever have no competitors, or investors ask you and you don't know your competitors, or you don't think you have competitors, Netflix is competing with sleep. So A, you have competitors, and B, if you don't know about the relevant ones and investors ask you, you're SOL.
Absolutely. Because there will be. Of course, for Netflix, it's Disney. It's going to be Netflix. It's maybe Amazon. So using that nice example, if you're doing Netflix and chill and you're looking for a solution, you haven't got a streaming event, but you know Netflix and chill is important, and you open them up, and then your friend comes around, and Disney's on the TV, and all you've got is a choice of cartoons for kids. This is going to kind of mess up the whole chill for the evening. If you open up the Amazon option and all you've got is kind of like shooting movies and things like that, then you kind of mess your chill up then. I think Netflix and chill nailed it because there's some rom-coms and some other stuff again. So you can pick your movie to match the night. And that, I guess, is like another matrix. Match your solution to the needs of the customer and show ideally a gap in there somewhere. So if what we needed in the lemonade example was a machine that can make lots of lemonade, it doesn't cost 500, but costs a little bit less, but it's still much better than the squeezing or the knife, then that shows a nice competitive point. It shows that you understand where your solution fits into the market. And that's another point, which to bring it in here too, the management team. This is one of the key parts. So before anything else is met, there will be basically people are investing in you. The earlier the stage that you are in the business, the more your management team is critical. The further along you are, the less important it is. Doesn't mean you can't basically ruin a good thing if you mess up the human branding, but you can. The earlier you are, the more important it is. And I guess as an example of that, if I said I've got Mother Teresa, Albert Einstein, and I guess Bezos are the three co-founders that are with me. Then we have Mother Teresa. That's basically someone that everybody trusts is going to come with the right ethics. So they are doing it for the right reason. If they're going to make a startup based on orphans, you then have the ethical trust. So this is one thing your pitch has to bring across the whole way through. Do I trust that your motivations and ethics are right? So use Mother Teresa as an example of the right motivations. We need technical competence. This is the next really important point. So the reason I mentioned Albert Einstein is because he's someone that's famous for being quite clever and having a technical mind. If you have a solution made by Albert Einstein, driven by the motivations of Mother Teresa, and then you have the third person in your team, which is someone that's done it before, that's built an idea and taken it to market, like Bezos has done amazingly well, you've got the perfect management team. Now, it's very unlikely you're going to have all those things, an amazing ethical person with a beautiful story and a connection to the market, or an amazing genius whiz CTO, and while you're also a serial entrepreneur that's managed to save the planet time and time over. So what you do in this case is, if you haven't got it in your core team, recognize that those are the 3 points you need to have in there and bring them in for your advisors. So if you're looking for somebody that knows how to talk entrepreneurship, get someone on board like Matt that's done it over and over and over again. If you need someone that really understands the needs of the market, your Mother Teresa in this case, you find someone that that worked for a big company. Ideally a C-level person at a massive multinational. But as high up as those, you can find those mentors in the network. And then the CTO person is really coming in from your advisors. If you're students and you're still early on all those points, then your advisory team becomes really important. Don't miss those. Don't miss your chance to brag about the things you do have. If you've got experience working in multinationals, those logos should be on here as well. If you've come from an Ivy League or a Sandstone University or another massive university here in Switzerland, ETH or any of the other big tech universities, ETFL, they should be all over this. From the very first slide we see, that should be quite clear that your management team is made from these deep tech people. So it's really trusting that you have the intent, that your intent is right, the competence, capability to technically deliver it, and a track record of doing the right thing.
And why
the track record of delivering.
And why the problem matters to you, and why the problem is really relevant to you, because entrepreneurship it's a shit show roller coaster of highs, amazing highs and terrible lows, and you're going to want to quit at least 50 to 100 times throughout doing this. And investors are looking for someone who's not going to quit. They're not going to give up. They're not going to take the easy, small exit. They're looking for the massive outliers who are often, in my opinion, motivated by unhealthy desires, goals to prove themselves to the world. So if you've proved yourself to the world, or you are some type of elite person, you're the CrossFit crazy, you're the ultra marathoner, you survived some type of accident, or you've done other types of kind of noteworthy things showing your grit and resistance, somewhere that needs to be in the deck or in your kind of pitch deck presentation, because they're betting on people that are really stubborn, aren't going to die, and going to give everything to make it happen.
This word you said there, grit. This is the key point. This is that knowledge that sometimes stupid. No, it's not stupid. It's naivete. It's naivety. None of us that launch a startup at the beginning ever know how tough the journey is going to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it again and again and again. But but we keep doing it. This kind of grit is what they want to see. So as a serial entrepreneur, if that's you and you're the one doing the pitch, then this is brilliant. Matt mentioned something else in there. It's your motivation, your drive, the reason it's important to you. Ideally, you're the Mother Teresa that comes in that really wants to save the planet. You could be all three in one hit, which brings another problem. If you are Jeff Bezos, Mother Teresa, and Albert Einstein all rolled in one, uh, then you need another buddy. You need someone that's going to basically be there with you. I think a lot of investors will get cold feet if you're a one person show. So a team. This is critical. So you don't have to show every person. I've seen some decks where you have 30 or 40 people on this management team slide. That's crazy. It should just really reflect those 3 points. I kind of glossed over the connection to market, but it comes out of these as well. Matt was right. If in introducing your team and you personally, it should be clear and obvious why it's important for you. And that's, I guess, one of the things you open up with at the very beginning. It's valid that you can be a CTO type person that really has a tech that you love and you're the one presenting it. You then need to bring on board people that have a deep connection to the market as well. And if your biggest love is that you love the technology, that's what you really want to do, then tell us that story. I'm not the kind of person that was born with an early age of knowing one single thing I want to do. I've got a much, much more diverse background. I love a lot of different things, but the staying power and I guess the ability to bring other people around is important here. So find the thing about your team that really stands out. You need to communicate intention. So basically that you are motivated to stick with it, capability, and a track record. You need to get that into your management team slide because this is what reinforces trust. And that should be woven through your entire deck. The next one. Now, this is probably one of the most important parts. Not the projections, because that's important. Just we touched on this early on when we're talking about the problem being big enough that people want to pay for it. Either one person that's going to pay $1 billion to me, or it's going to be 1 billion people paying one. Either way, that's the massive point. Your route to market, your team, your competence, your USP, this gives you your projection. And by the time you're talking about projections, a hockey stick everyone sees over and over and over again, that's not the thing which is going to be motivating. We need to see somewhere in there a massive number. 100 million is thrown around over and over and over again as the main point. The hockey stick is not convincing. It's everything leading up to before that. So in here, what we really need is your track record. And I think that's actually what they do on here as well. Exactly. So your projections, key metrics, the further along you have, the more knowledge you have about what's important to succeed in your particular area. So if you're a platform, I guess thinking about now, going back a long way now to Facebook and to Amazon and those other businesses that are now massive, it's all about the number of users you've got and the growth and the traction and these other digital metrics. Understand for your particular business what's the most important thing you can track and present that here. The most important thing you can track, no matter what the business is basically sales. It's have people trusted you enough to give you their cash? And if they have, and you've got 1 billion already, then raising your next part's going to be easy. If you're early on and your traction is not, it's something like promises or handshakes or surveys or whatever it happens to be, then that's the stuff you're communicating that gives you the confidence that your projection will make sense. One thing I would say, and that comes into this next slide, accomplishments to date, timeline, use of funds, current status, that you can't separate that from the financial projections. They're one and the same. But what you should do is ground your entire presentation as early on in the stuff that you've done that's concrete, that proves all the capabilities and the track record. Don't just give us a number and say we're going to make 1 billion and leave it at that and open with this. Because if you tell me that to me and I've never heard of you and I've never heard of your tech and I don't think you really understand the market, I'm going to lose trust in those. By the time you're asking me to give you 1 billion, I want to see that you've had a track record of delivering on all these points. You deeply understand the business. Your market product has been proven. The more stuff you've got in the past, in the beginning of the presentation, the more I'm going to trust you when you finally ask for that final part. And that's in here as well. It's the use of the funds. So,
and one thing I would add as well is the financial projection. Sorry for always jumping in and out. I always have too much of an opinion. But in my opinion, it also is investor dependent. So where your investors are based. I will say European investors are generally a lot more conservative. U.S. investors, prior to things changing a little bit thanks to Trump, but they're much more betting on a vision and a long term. Where can you take this? seeing the specific numbers and revenues, I don't need to know exactly how that works. If I can think through the back of the envelope math and see these guys are going to make X amount selling this product, and as this grows and scales, you don't have to be as precise with financial projections with certain investors versus with other investors. And that having that there, I find, or wouldn't necessarily recommend it in an initial outreach deck for investors, because you're capping your upside potential. Maybe it's something where certainly European investors, they like to see how quickly am I going to get my money back? And I want to know exactly what this is going to look like, because they're generally more risk averse, versus if you are dealing with an Andreessen Horowitz that just wants to throw money at you and have high valuations so they get invested in the top companies. Your goal is to make them jealous and worried, fear of missing out. Not to the degree of like a YC, oh, our round is closing on Friday, can I pencil you in for 150K? But you do want to have that fear of missing out there.
I think there's two parts of that. So the earlier the stage you are, the more you're depending on the vision, the more your team is important, the more it's really not what you've done, but people understanding what that you can basically do more. At the one end of investments, you've got banks. Banks need to see receipts for the orders. They need to see everything lined up step by step by step. This is at the most boring end. And contrary to popular belief, I would say if you can avoid working with banks, avoid it, because they are super risk averse. And if they see that there's a bit of a chance they're going to make their money, they're far more likely to pull the pin and to try to liquidate and get the cash back than somebody who is just throwing money around because they don't care whether it's going to win or not. So ideally, everyone would love to have a rich mentor of some kind that can throw a check for $1 million and say, "Here, go for it. I trust in you. I believe in you as a person. I know you'll make it no matter what. I don't need to see my money in XYZ years." And at the other end, banks, they don't take equity. They don't expect anything more. They won't come and micromanage. But the second you start missing payments, they're going to come in and shut everything down. So there is I guess a range of different investors, and they're going to change too. If it's an early stage investor, they're definitely going to be much more happy to take risks than somebody which is later stage, which is looking at your ability to turn and meet your promises as well. Same thing with follow-ons. A follow-on investor is far more likely to join a second round if everything you said you're going to do, you've done to date. So that's really the goal of the entire pitch deck, is to get to the point where you're having a conversation with the right investor. So when Matt says he doesn't like to send what we're after, if your pitch deck reads really clearly and paints a really clear picture that we've got a solution to the problem that fits really well, we need $100,000 not to pay salaries for the team, but to just finish our patent approval, which is key for this particular business. And they see that you understand that that's the absolute critical point of your entire business. It's going to be easier to raise that cash. If you come in and say, I need 100 grand because that's our first round, without giving any idea as to how that 100 grand is going to be spent, then people are going to be less likely to have the conversation with you. And I guess that's really the point in there. The further along you are, the more they're going to want to see track records, cash flow, all the other metrics that come in. The earlier you are, the less crooked it is to be.
And the later you are, generally the less
Yep.
the less you need them. So a lot of times with climate tech and hardware companies, as you start getting later stage, A, if investors are interested, probably a lot of investors will be, and B, you may want to avoid dilutive capital to go the kind of debt-based financing route. Once you get to the later series B, C, etc., you've already proven things. That's when you go to the bank and say, "Hey, we just want these terms. We'll pay you this set and set interest," versus giving up 20% of your company, 10% of your company for risk capital when you've already mitigated most of the risk.
Exactly. So if we were basically pulling that back in, just to really quickly zip through those quickly, opening with a pain point. The reason we do that is we want to show that there's a pain big enough for people to spend money with. We're linking that to a market. It's basically to enough people that will spend cash, and showing we understand the needs of the customer really deeply. And then showing how our solution will solve that better than anybody else. It shows that we have the team that can deliver it. It shows how our team and solution convinces people that because of our track record, because of what we managed to do so far, is the right team to deliver it. It also then, towards the very end of the presentation, asks or pitch shows the gap, what you need to do to get to the next plan. So this is this projection with the upward scale. We're going to go worldwide, etc. But this is really a small part of your pitch, your big dreams. Anchor us for the most in what you've managed to do already. Show us a really big vision of the future, and then say how the cash that you're asking for in this particular round will be used to get closer to that. And that just might be you're going to do another follow-on round in 12 months' time, or a series A, B, C, raise and raise and raise, and you have an idea for how to grow it. But you don't need to map that out in your pitch. Your pitch is really to get the investor, the audience at the other end, aware that you understand and excited that your team and solution and USP is the right one to solve a problem which is massive, and that they can get a taste of how their investment could be used.
And raise at least 18 months of runway. And then I would use, when you show that use of funds, this will be our 18-month runway to achieve certain milestones to trigger the next kind of round of investment. Because if you raise less than 18 months, a lot of times you're going to start fundraising, and that's going to be a 6-month process. And if you're constantly fundraising, you're never building. So you want to have the time to be able to build things and make significant progress. That's why 18 months, if you can go longer with the way the economic landscape is, certainly do it. Dilution's not as big of a problem these days as you might think it is. If you can get the money to keep your company going, that's what you do, even if it means giving up a larger chunk of your company. Valuations have come down a lot in the last several years because there was lots of COVID high money as we had the zero interest rate environment, and now things have flip-flopped with Trump and the view on saving the planet and doing the good things. So that's all to keep in mind as well, is don't be too choosy sometimes if you don't have the ability to be choosy. Sometimes you just have to deal with the game on the field and then play that game.
So I guess it's the 18 months idea. So if you're thinking about the time scale, so at this financial projections, you're rather than looking into the future 3 years, 1 year, 2 years, three. I mean, no one could have predicted COVID. No one could have predicted, the things that happened in the last 6 months. I mean, people could, but not years and years ago. So we are. It feels like in ever changing times. So instead, your financial projections, ground them in the last couple of years. Show what you've managed to do. There are three things I mentioned before. It's intent, it's capability, and track record. Your financial projections, go a year, 18 months into the future, 2 years. Give us an idea for what you plan to do 10 years down the track. Don't put the entire thing as an upward hockey stick where you're down in this bottom corner with nothing that's been done so far. Show us the things you've done. You've managed to onboard co-founders, you've patented, you've closed rounds, you've given things, you've managed to do things. You show us 6 months into the future, which includes the funding round being closed and what you're going to spend the money on, so that it makes a lot of sense. The investor or the person that you're basically asking for something from, no matter what it happens to be, but cash is the easiest one to communicate, can see how that money is going to unlock and de-risk your business for the next milestone, which is probably going to be another round, or it's going to be on the market and raising cash organically. But that's what your projection is doing. And that's what the last slide, when you're making an ask, there are risks, of course. It's like running out of cash too early, or these other points like that. But this comes with experience. The more concrete you describe your journey to date, the more likely it is somebody will sit down at a table with you and start talking about the cash. What do you really need? What is it that you're doing? And that's it. So Matt was saying, do I need to put the point on here of how much we're raising? Do we not? If you're raising 2 million, that's going to maybe squash people that are only looking to put 5 in. If you're raising only 50 grand, then that's going to make people that are going to give you 2 million basically probably shut the deck for now anyway. So that's, I guess, the point on that. But probably what I wanted to do, it took a lot longer to go through Kawasaki's slides than I normally do, because I've seen so many examples of decks that miss the basics. We'll probably do an entire second session on how to basically refine those, cut your deck back to a key story, and it's probably a lot of it's actually one-on-one, really working out what your business does well and making sure that that's the first thing the investors hear, because just like you might have heard with with CVs, a recruiter will look at your CV for 6 seconds before they decide to give you a call or not, and most investors will look at the first couple of slides and they maybe won't even skim past that. They see you're another carbon copy of other businesses, they may not even get to the point where your USP is before they sort of shut it. And when you're getting hundreds and hundreds of decks every day, you need to make sure that you're catching the attention early on. So it's it's being part of the massive competitions. If you're part of Y Combinator, part of MC or something like that, get that on your front slide. If you've already raised with Sequoia, that can guarantee you a whole lot of other cash without any other due diligence being done too. So it's get those massive brands early on, get the traction. Another startup I was working with recently opened that they've already got offtake agreements for their product, knowing that in their particular business, that was the key point. Start with your accomplishments early. Don't leave the accomplishments to date, like here, like they did in Kawasaki, to the very last slide. Open with these things, even if you're just name dropping it somehow. And that's the other point too. I guess it's customizing for the presenter that's specifically there. I'll shut this one down and come back to the main pitch. But here, so going through the questions, we've got a few minutes left. So Swiss Tech Corp.
I've been jumping into them as well as I see them.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, Matt's been answering a few. Any open ones in here that haven't been addressed yet? I guess for me,
nothing open so far. Recording will be here, of course, on the event page. You can just go into events and past events. We'll post this to YouTube as well. In terms of getting feedback from mentors, investors, etc., you've got to be good enough to grab someone's attention. So if you can grab Hendrik's or my or other investors' attention, that's how you get feedback there. And then you get to set up sessions. We'll try to set up some sessions as well in the future for pitching and feedback. If you're raising your hand, you just need to post a question in the chat. Otherwise, we're not going to see your question. This is only Hendrik and I are able to be on camera, unfortunately. Otherwise, it's like a million startup founders fighting for the mic, and we don't make a lot of progress with that. If you do need help with this as well, and you are maybe a little bit further along, or you're serious about raising funding, getting support on your pitch decks, introductions to investors, the ins and outs of the process, and practicing the pitching, we of course do this as part of our consulting and advisory arm. You can reach out, just forward.earth/consulting. Other types of trial environments that help with accomplishment, I assume you're talking about TRL level, so not necessarily paying customers. That's a whole nother can of worms with climate tech companies. But yes, the closer you get to having your product in the hands of customers with them paying for it, the more convincing it is for A, other customers, B, potential investors. So it's really taking them along that process of TRL 1 idea or being in the lab all the way to at scale in the field and being used. Do you want to jump into that a little bit, Hendrik? Because you do work really hard with hardware.
I mean, so I was also writing a response to Ahan, who was asking a question about investors whether they can get money from the USA and build a company in Europe. You absolutely can, but most investors will invest close to home. With hardware, for me personally, I think there's been a massive push in AI and businesses in this kind of space and soft tech. Hardware can be a bit more challenging when it comes to scaling and growing because you need to build something. But I personally like it more because you can see something that can hold an advantage. It's hard to bypass a hard concrete prototype. So was this the question for Pooja, Matt, the one about the prototyping and the hardware?
I think it was, in terms of kind of the lessons learned through the process. A lot of that you'll put into the not in the deck, but in the presentation as well. But you do want to show if you've had case studies, field pilots, customers' interests. Letters of intent mean nothing unless they've been paid or you have kind of real true commitment. A letter of intent, sure, you want to show these and kind of feature it, but most investors won't take this too seriously because you can intend to do a lot of things and then not do those things you intend to do. There's nothing legally binding. If you can get something legally binding from companies, clients, distributors, partners, corporates, etc., it's a much better and more valuable kind of thing to feature.
Correct. So here we go, going through the question. So Pooja's question about the first prototype and earlier testing, now ready for a second prototype. So in here, your lessons learned. This ties into your pain, how you're solving the pain, ties into your USP, shows that you understand the competitive landscape. If you made a prototype that didn't fit and you learnt what the others are doing and you're doing something better, then you put that in here again. If your track record shows you've done a bunch of tests and found what doesn't work, you still need to show and make a logical connection to where the money will be spent to make it work next time. So it's there's not a clear answer as to where it goes in. Try to tie it together in a story that makes sense. But the work you've done in the past is evidence of success in the future. If you promised that you'd solve the problem and didn't in your first prototype, maybe repitch it. If what you're doing with the first prototype is trying to learn more about the market, then that goes into your story of what you've managed to learn. And the more you've done, the more that gives you competitive advantage, the more that goes together. So that could even be in your magic, the magic that comes in your startup. It's in your USP slide. What's your unfair advantage? We've already made prototypes that have tested, and now we know where the real business is going to go. We need to prototype and test the next one. Right checkpoint and start for raising funds, working MVP, landing first customer, landing first paying customer. Absolutely the first paying customer. Money, cash is king. Doesn't matter. Don't try to make an MVP something that works. If you've already got cash and you just want to turn that cash into a business, this is the best trust. The most trust someone will give you, apart from giving you the kids to look after, is giving the cash. So I would probably pay someone cash before I gave them my kids to look after, but some people are the other way around. So if you come already, no-code AI tools make building prototype very easy. Exactly. A prototype is easy. If people are giving you cash, though, if you've managed to raise 1 million people using your prototype and you've raised $1 million a year, then any investor that's going to come on board for that is definitely going to give you more. This is without a doubt. But the number of startups that I hear about every day, which is just another Scooby-Doo meme with a what's under the hood, chat GPT. That's not convincing that you've done anything.
That might
So
be
if you got
convincing for demand, though. So for creating kind of an MVP of the fact that people are interested and want to use that, yes, you've got the demand, but what you don't have is what we mentioned before, the secret sauce. So for instance, one of the best pitches or pitch decks of all time, it was Dropbox. This was back in the early days of the internet. They recorded a video, they took a file, a Word doc or something on one computer, they sent it over to themselves via email onto the other computer, and then they faked a video where they had a folder on their computer labeled Dropbox. They dragged the file into the folder, and it mysteriously appeared in the other folder in the other laptop. And they were like, Dropbox, get it here and pre-sign up today. And they got hundreds of thousands of people putting their email in. So I would say, in terms of showing demand, that's not something where you can get paying customers for it. There are things where if you can get that, not MVP per se, but that proof point of demand, or you've got a buy it now button or a sign up button, and you've got X number of people who've said they would buy it or have put their name on the email list to get the updates when the product launches, etc. Those can be great sources of traction where you can't necessarily get those customers ahead of time, but you can at least see that there is the demand for what you're doing and show to investors. Not only is there demand, but we're able to tap into that demand, and we have it waiting for us once you give us your money, please.
This is true. Going through the questions and the question funds. So, is Europe a better source for climate clean energy funding for Africa, Eastern European than North American? I think at the moment, absolutely, Europe is easier. This is it's just political changes. I guess is one point on there, unfortunately. Then we're going back. Actually, I was doing it the wrong way. Can I get funding from the USA, build a company in Europe? Yes, you can, but it's much easier to get it local no matter where you are. Most investors will invest locally, and they have normally rules as to where the cash is being used, or so the closer to the investor you are, the easier it is to basically sit down and have a deal with them as well. Biotech applications for climate change like extremophiles and carbon sequestration, site and isolation, exploitation. Okay, so in here, if your solution is basically going to solve climate change, then you're missing the key customer. Find a person that needs extremophiles to solve their particular problem for carbon sequestration. It could be that your customer is a existing startup or scale up. It could be that your customer is an organization or a corporate that's looking to spend money in that space. So the closer to the market you are, the closer to the market you can communicate, the more likely it is people will basically trust and
Your
find your
solution
solution.
doesn't solve climate change, it solves some aspect. So don't proclaim to solve climate change because you have the ability to mitigate X number of tons of CO2, etc. You need to deal with who is the person who's paying for the solution to solve the problem that they have. Because a silver bullet is not something you can sell to anyone because there's no solution to everything. So again, be very specific. Who's your customer? Who are you selling to? How do you help them? And why do they want to buy what you have?
Samantha asked a critical question as well. How important is it to investors in today's market that you invest a significant amount of your own capital? And in this point, it's trust. If you haven't put any of your own sweat into this, blood, sweat, tears, then why would somebody else trust that basically that you're going to do the same thing? So there's 3 points. It's the intent, that your intent is here. Are you committed? Do you have the grit? Are you all in? And that's what investing your own money puts in. If you've raised every single cent of the money yourself and you've put every single part of your dreams into this builds trust. They still need to see that you can turn that into something else, and they need to see that they trust what you're going to do with it. But that's a nice signal. There's lots of people that come on a day-to-day basis and say, I've got a great idea. I'm not going to put cash in myself, but if you want, you can put money here. There's no trust. People are not gonna trust that as
And if you
much.
have a day job doing something else, no one's going to fund you. If you have multiple startups, no one's going to fund you. I'm sorry, how do you choose your favorite kid to feed when there's only enough food for one? And that's what investors want you to be able to do. If you're taking their money, they want this to be the only kid that you're feeding.
Exactly. It's trust. It's basically no matter everything else I've said so far. I guess I should have opened with it. It's you are communicating a message to someone that has to trust you. This is the foundation. AI can do all the rest. It can build solutions. It can build everything else. But trust is as important today as it was in early markets in the bazaar. So yeah, open with your traction, your evidence of what you've done. Open with a story that shows you're connected deeply to the problem, and make sure in your story it shows that you've had a track record of getting it done. And the rest of it is just window dressing. That's really the core. That's what you have to communicate in your pitch. We used the tool today just to get it in there. But Matt, thank you for having me today. It's been great. Sorry for going a little bit over time.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming on, doing this. Hopefully this has been helpful for all of you. Again, we'll be posting the recording for this. We have a couple more sessions coming up in our fundraising, investment, and M&A series for startups and scale-ups. You can check out the rest of those in our events page. You'll be able to see those there. There's another session June 3rd for understanding and dealing with capital and investors. And if you want support with this, if it's reaching out to companies, perfecting your pitch deck, scaling what you're doing, building out partnerships, scaling your team, just forward.earth, the number forward.earth/consulting, and you can reach out to us about our strategic consulting and advisory services.